grade.
I didn't know whether they were going to be here tonight or not. I would assume that
The school corporation won't allow them to put lines down.
On the not anymore. That used to be the.
So like during the regular season, they allow it, and the TV will allow it because of this.
But she,
You know,
right when you started
they ask you.
you know, when the Tolbert house is in the corner, she lives right next to the house, and she has done a fabulous job of restoring that.
At least one game or two. The administration puts it in.
Tolbert house is on the corner of the exact corner on the 26th Broadway on the north side. You know, you are different. Oh God! See, that's why you didn't care how to work because you don't know anymore.
I grew up on the quiet north side. I like it.
At least the weather's getting better.
Okay.
I know exactly. We're full of the hot.
I know.
Well, I mean, I don't want to break another bill, so 25 seems like a reasonable number.
Okay.
Pardon?
See if I can. Let me see if I can just show you something.
Oh, yeah. Okay. 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 Copy that. All right. Pass these down. Here, I'll give you some. No.
Well, good evening to you too.
All right. Yeah, I got one. Yep, you can have that. Okay, it's 5:45. I will bring the Finance Committee meeting to order. Tim, if you and Malcolm want to come up and maybe talk a little bit about these resolutions. These are in reference to the Okra grant that we're applying to. I sent you the resolutions to review ahead of time. The sheet that you're getting is kind of a recap of the costs that would be involved in the first part of the project, and I'll let Tim kind of explain if he'd like. Basically, you can see we're working only on the outside of the structure for this grant. So
we're holding a public hearing at 6 o'clock that'll review things in more detail, but essentially we're asking for $750,000 in community development block grant funding from the state agency OCRA to go towards Memorial Center, basically historical preservation of the exterior of the building. The focus is making sure that the exterior of the building is all updated and that there's no further water pests, anything else that are going to be affecting the quality of the building so that they can then start working on the inside. But our goal at this point is to historically preserve the exterior of the building. The grant is going to cover everything minus the ADA accessibility ramp, which will come at a later date. Because it's a historical preservation project, OCRA doesn't allow us to include even things like ADA accessibility in the building. They're not opposed to the ramp being put in later. They're well aware of it, and we already got that ramp design reviewed and approved by the state SHPO office, the office that's in charge of historical preservation. So everybody's okay with it. We're just not allowed to put it in this scope of work because it's not preservation of the building, so it's an ineligible expense for that grant funding. So we got an updated version of the total local match that's expected to be used for this project is $325,000. $325,510.50, of which approximately $9,000 has actually already been expended. It was used for some asbestos and lead testing, but it's considered to be an eligible addition for local match. So in essence, we're getting extra bonus points for that grant application by including that in our budget, but it will not need to be expended. It already has been expended. In addition, there's also approximately $55,000 in expenses that are part of a contract that was already signed with Browning Day architectural firm. That's in their review of the exterior of the building and the assistance they provided in getting an updated budget together. So that's already actually been contracted as well. It's not been expended yet, as far as I know. I checked with the clerk's office about 2 weeks ago, and I don't believe they'd received an invoice yet, but,
Still have it.
okay. So the remaining funds, we've already confirmed with the clerk's office, are available in the line item that we're currently calling out for use.
And as you saw in the resolutions, one is to authorize the match and the other is to approve of applying for the grant. So I don't know, are there any questions you want to ask Tim or? No questions? Is everyone okay with moving this to the council meeting then?
Yes.
Okay, well, I guess we're all finished then,
Can I
Tim.
get a copy of the signed resolutions from the clerk's office tomorrow or sometime after? Would that be the best place to ask?
Yep.
If I email you.
Well, you want me to just have them email you copies? I'll have them do that.
Okay. Thank you.
Jay, your time.
Yes, of course.
So getting back to this. So this is, I just wanted to show you this. So this is May. May. So this is March, April, May, February, March, April, May. But they for total. Yeah. But it's, I just wanted to show you. So he's got- I can see where it's built in. And that's not hers. So. These are all the text messages between the owner of that hotel and Chris Martin. And he's telling me all about that. All that stuff is like all the potential that that's and that he's gonna be on there next. At one point where he doesn't. He wants to go 7,000 tickets to the game. And it was 750.
6? Okay. Yeah, now's the time. It's insane.
Well, we're trying to round up a lot of stuff.
I'm not sure. I didn't have them. She usually gives them to me, and I didn't have anything. So.
Email her, so when we're closer to that.
Okay. Awesome. Thank you, Tim.
We could win on that.
Which one does it refer to? Yeah, it was.
They didn't get.
Right, yeah, yeah. But first, text me like, which are you sure? I said, so I'll have to do the math again.
It's like anything, like, proposing, they don't look right.
No, I know.
Got blown out in New York, and then blew out in New York, and Indy.
Even though he could have been over
Really? Why are they setting up the finals? Mr. Cousins usually don't like it.
I guess.
You know, 3 months ago, so it's good. Yes.
Before their groundbreaking.
It's like being in school.
Finances. Everybody's taking pictures of that. Hulk Hogan and ring and there's stroke.
So it's all set up?
Yeah. Disappointing. This one I thought it was real.
No, there was a team, so last year. And there was going to be musicians. This was one that the city had it. RDC there was a couple of
Yes, this is where this one is fine. It's really and there's
I sent to you.
We're gonna do that 23rd with the finance, because I've got another item to get released too, so we're gonna do 23rd. Yeah, that way we get it all through, so that's next time. Now, I didn't get it, but right. And I'll see the council to go over prior to the meeting too. So. Yep.
Mark decide whether you're interested in doing that on the free days.
You know what? Okay. That's
But we're trying to figure out what days we're going to do, so how often we can do it, so. Well,
like you ended up getting a lot of money last year, didn't you?
we did like $2,500. We had 200 visits left for this year, so we were able to use this year. So.
You have 200 visits left. So how much money is a visit? Like how much
For
money?
one day is $380
Okay. $380.
for 250 people.
250 passes, right?
Right.
Okay, and you're looking for donations for free days.
Yep. Yep.
I'll go back with you.
Yeah, please do. It's just not the timing will be really bad.
Good evening, it is Monday, June 2nd. I am live. I'm Mayor Chris Martin calling to order the public hearing at 6 o'clock. This is for the Public Facilities Grant.
Yeah.
Is there anybody in the audience who would like to speak?
Would you like me to go first?
Yes,
Maybe I can inspire some.
there you go.
Absolutely. All right. Oh. Got to record for the record. They don't believe me if I just promise that I did the public hearing. Okay, so we're here today for the City of Logansport, Cass County Memorial Center Exterior Renovation Grant. It's a public facilities grant program. It's a program administered by the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs, or OCRA. It's funded with Federal Community Development Block Grant, or CDBG dollars. These grants support a variety of projects that benefit typically either low to moderate income persons or eliminate slum and blight in the communities. In order to be eligible for the CDBG program, we need a lead applicant that is a unit of government. That can be a city, county, or incorporated town. In this case, the City of Logansport is serving as our lead applicant. The project is required to meet one of the national objectives to be eligible under CDBG funding. In this case, the eligible national objective for this program is an area-wide benefit to low and moderate income individuals. The maximum award for historical preservation in a public facilities project is $750,000, and in this case, the City of Logansport is seeking the full $750,000. Local match of at least 10% of the total project cost is required. Additional in-kind contributions can be counted as local match up to 5% with a maximum of $25,000. In this case, we are not seeking in-kind contributions. In this case, the housing needs of the applicant include the public facilities project, specifically the historical preservation of the exterior of the Logansport Cass County Memorial Center building. In essence, what that means is we are updating all of the exterior portion of the building. Construction will not include the interior of the building, it's just the exterior. Of the $750,000 that's being requested, based on the current HUD used 2016-2020 ACS census data, Logansport's LMI population is 54.1%. So approximately $405,750 of the grant dollars will be spent on LMI individuals. Local funds to be used for this project total $325,510.50 in non-CDBG funds. Those will all be derived from the Logansport Memorial Home Fund. There will be no displacement of any individual or business related to this project. Potential grantee is required to respond to any written comments that are received as part of the public hearing process. Malcolm, we had no written comments submitted, is that correct?
I received it.
So our important dates, we submitted a proposal in April 17th after our first public hearing, which was in April. We met with the state after that. They gave us some good positive feedback about our application, made some good suggestions. We've made a few minor tweaks to the way we're approaching the project. Our next step is an application submittal on June 20th, and then award announcement is expected between August and September. We have a sign-in sheet, and we've gotten everybody. Does anybody have any specific questions about this project?
Did you say that you spoke with state people, and then you made tweaks, minor changes. Can you give us a sense of what that information is? Because it sounds interesting to actually hear from the mind of somebody who is overseeing and maybe judging.
So the primary change that we made was the initially listed eligibility activity was going to be a prevention of slum and blights, but that was actually going to limit our dollar amount that we could request. Because we're going for an area-wide benefit to LMI individuals, it allows us to ask for more money. We also recently did a slum and blight project in Logansport using OCRA money. That was the Trello Work project. And there was some concern that they might have a point penalty if we did submit under that direction because they've just done a blight clearance project. It's technically in a different program that OCRA provides. That was in just a blight slum clearance project. This was a public facilities project, so it was still kind of open for interpretation as to whether we might get those points deducted, but it seemed like this was a far better direction for us to take. We were originally going for slum and blight because we were hoping that we could save our public facilities for working on the inside of the building. We still may be able to do that because there are some minor tweaks that would be different between this project and that project. It doesn't certainly rule out the possibility of asking for more money to work on the inside, but it reduces our chances. So initially, we were trying to go for 2 different programs so we could do one for the outside, one for the inside. Now we're going for a better bet for the outside and crossing our fingers we can still use your money for the outside, essentially.
Thank you.
Anybody else? Questions or statements of support?
Come up here, I guess. Mercedes Brew, 1315 East Market Street. I just want to say I'm here in support of Memorial Home.
I guess the last thing I would add is if you have not submitted a letter of support and you would greatly like to see us get grant funding to update the exterior of that building, please send us a letter. You can drop it off to the mayor's office. They've got a folder waiting. You can get a hold of either Malcolm or myself. We will gladly take a letter. Anything that you can say positively for trying to get grant support. OCRA does very much focus on what the residents would like. Other grant funding is focused more on the bottom line of your city's budget. In OCRA's case, they care to a minor degree. They want to make sure you need the money before they give you the money. But what they really want to see is that we're doing what the community wants us to do. So letters of support would actually go quite far.
Excuse me, could I ask you, how many letters of support do you have presently?
Roughly, I would say 10 to 12.
What's the number that you're looking for?
I mean, there's no goal that we get to necessarily. I think our goal at this point would be trying to find more residential letters of support. We've gotten some good local organizations that are supporting, trying to get the Memorial Home worked on, but just plain old residential letters. I don't know. Residents who are talking about their memories of the Memorial Center, you know, that they would like to see a new community center that's open, especially when it's going to be more of a benefit to low to moderate income individuals.
Do you have an example or a form letter that you could provide me with?
I can, but a form letter is not going to be near as good as something that comes from the heart. I would rather have a handwritten 4-sentence letter that's from the heart.
Well, I understand that, but if you give people a form letter, I'm not saying they're going to just sign that, but it gives them a starting point as opposed to asking people to just write letters. They're not going to do that.
Absolutely.
Okay, so if you could get that to me, I'd appreciate it, and I'll
Absolutely.
see if I can help you out there. Thank you.
Anyone else?
We take comments from Morrison.
Yes.
Dave Kitchell, 1423 North Street. I was mayor when we worked on this project after Mayor Franklin worked on this project. And obviously, we've had some snags in what's going forward. We need to support this project. We were given a project that was dead in the water. In fact, the county wanted to tear this down. and put a disc there saying it was once the home of a war memorial, and I had testified at the state legislature against that bill. It passed anyway after Randy Head made some amendments. And by the way, Randy Head had his own wedding reception in that building. But we have squandered away a great opportunity with the man who owned the #1 wedding destination center in the state of Indiana, Rocky Shaughnessy of Noblesville, who, by the way, is a Republican, ran as a Republican in Noblesville, and was going to build an event center here for us. Within that, get a little help from the city. He got none. The current mayor was briefed on that in the final month of 2015. He opted not to fund it, not to bring 15 jobs here, not to bring an investment here, not to bring a magnet to downtown Logansport here. And we need support for this. We had an option at that time of the USDA grant program of a loan that would have paid the whole cost of this. That program has since dried up. We don't have that option anymore. So we owe it to the veterans of this community. And unfortunately, our mayor does not believe that events that honor veterans are mandatory or a good idea, as mayors of both parties for the last 100 years have believed. He thinks they're optional events that are just like anything else. He'd rather be at an Iron Horse basketball game than honoring the veterans who died for this country. Now, what does that tell you about our city? I'll tell you what it tells people who are outside this city. I had a call from a businessman who does a lot of business in this community. And he asked me what he can do because he's given up on this mayor and this administration and the city. He doesn't live here. He has investments here. He's at the point where he may sell them because this administration doesn't do things about the people and the things in the city. And as I've said before, I would call on the mayor to resign, to allow a city manager to be appointed professionally, nonpartisan, hired by the city council members here, and that he forfeit the money that he was paid for not being at work for the last 4 years. And I understand the frustration with Joe Biden and his incapacitation as president, but he's 80-something years old. This man is less than 40, less than half that age, and doesn't show up for work and gets paid for it. And if any of you around here, Billy Cox is a fireman, or Scott Petey is a utility member, as a teacher would be, as a postman would be, if you didn't show up that amount of time like he hasn't, you wouldn't have had a job and you wouldn't be here today. So let's get honest and let's get real. Let's get serious about doing what we have to do about the problems in this city. You guys, I don't want your jobs. You've got a lot on your plate. You're part-time employees. This person is not. This person needs to go. We need to put the Memorial Center in front of us, get it done, and put it behind us, and go on to bigger and better things. Thank you so much.
Any other comments? Tim, did you have anything you wanted to finish with? No. It is 6:12 p.m. I will call to order, or call to the end of the public hearing. Thank you. Thank you, Tim.
Tim, appreciate it. All right.
Good evening. It is 6:13 p.m. on Monday, June 2nd, 2025. I'm Mayor Chris Martin, calling to order the regular session of the Logansport Common Council. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call.
Chris Howard,
Present.
Cameron Austin,
Present.
BJ Cox, Haley Sinsmaster,
Present.
Scott Scott Peety,
Present.
Susie Walmsley,
Present.
Dave Morris.
Present.
Start with the approval of minutes from the May 5th, 2025 meeting. I have a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for question.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
BJ Cox,
Yes.
Scott Peety,
Yes.
Susie Walmsley,
Yes.
Dave Morris, Haley Zinsmaster,
Yes.
Chris Howard.
Yes.
Reports from committees, boards, and commissions.
Finance Committee met on May the 19th. We discussed the fiscal policy resolution, which is on tonight's agenda, the pilot request for the Section 142 Trelleborg Apartments, and made a recommendation to accept the trash contract for GFL. And then we had a Finance Committee meeting again tonight, June the 2nd, in which we discussed the two resolutions, one authorizing submittal and one authorizing the financial support of the city to the Oakwood grant, and they're both on tonight's agenda.
Any other reports from committees, boards, and commissions? All right. Seeing none, we'll start with old business, ordinance 2025-13. Councilman Morris.
So I'll go ahead and read this ordinance 2025-13. It's an ordinance of the City of Logansport, Indiana, annexing territory to the City of Logansport, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the City of Logansport, Northwest Everett Road, super voluntary annexation. And I'd like to make a recommendation to table this until after Resolution 2025-130 is passed. We have to pass the fiscal policy resolution before we have the second reading and pass the annexation.
Do you have a motion to table?
Second.
Call for question.
Haley Zinsmaster,
Yes.
Scott Peety,
Yes.
Dave Morris,
Yes.
Chris Howard,
Yes.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
BJ Cox,
Yes.
Susie Walmsley.
Yes.
Ordinance 2025-13 is tabled. Ordinance 2025-15. Councilman Key.
It's 2025-15, an ordinance of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, amending the Logansport zoning ordinance to include mobile vendors. Mr. Mayor, I'd like to have a vote on ordinance 2025-15, please. Second.
Any further discussion?
Aaron, I was just curious, did you get any kind of feedback on this at all?
I had a couple vendors stop in my office, and one just wanted to understand what exactly it was saying. And then the other one, major concern was the moving it daily because her husband works and she can't move it with her car. But I said that's what's being proposed at this time. She was the only one that had that concern.
You sent this basically to every vendor you...
So I sent it to every vendor that the health department had on their registration, so it was even people that only go to the 4-H fair. So I sent it to all of them.
Okay. Thank you.
If they haven't applied this year or aren't up on their licensing, they may not have gotten it, but.
So how does that work if they're at the 4-H fair? They don't have to move it every night?
No, they don't, so that's for a special event, so that's
Okay.
different.
Aaron, I'd be interested in knowing if you've heard from the people who have the vendor at, what's that new place called, like
Trader Bucks.
something? Thank you.
That one, they just asked the information. They didn't really specify. We had a couple people ask when the meeting was, but I don't see any of them here. So there was a few that we told that the second meeting was happening.
Okay, so what's your game plan after this is passed, and then the guy at Trader Bucks is there day after day? What are you gonna do about that?
We would be sending him a letter and ticketing him.
And whose job is that?
For that, it would be our department.
Okay, thank you.
One last question. It mentions in here the yearly fee is the same as the temporary use. How much is that,
That's
Aaron?
$50.
$50. Thank you.
Any other discussion? Call for question?
Amy Zinsmaster,
Yes.
Susie Woolsey,
Yes.
Dave Morris,
Yes.
Chris Howard,
Yes.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
BJ Cox,
Yes.
Scott Peety,
Yes.
Ordinance 2025-15 passes on its second reading.
I just wanted to mention that it is, I think, 6 to 10 and 6 to 11. They do have to move daily, but that doesn't mean that they can't go back to that same location. So you didn't drive by at 10 o'clock at night. I mean, we'll keep an eye on it and stuff like that, but I'm just letting people know in public, if they see them in the same location, they can go back to that same location. It's just making sure they stay mobile. Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
On to new business, Resolution 2025-130. Councilman Austin.
Resolution 2025-130, a fiscal policy resolution for annexing contiguous territory to the city of Logansport, Indiana. Mr. Mayor, ask for a vote on 2025-130.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for question.
BJ Cox,
Yes.
Amy Zinsmaster,
Yes.
Dave Morris,
Yes.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
Susie Woolsey,
Yes.
Scott Peety,
Yes.
Yes.
Resolution 2025-130 passes. 2025-113, ordinance. Councilman Morris. Is that the one you wanted? After the 130, right? Okay. All right.
Ordinance 2025-13, an ordinance of the City of Logansport, Indiana, annexing territory to the City of Logansport, placing the same within the corporate boundaries thereof, and making the same a part of the City of Logansport, Northwest Edith's Road Super Voluntary Annexation. I make a motion to approve.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for question.
Dave Morris, Scott Peety,
Yes.
Chris Martin, oh, sorry. I meant to say Dave, oh, I got Dave, didn't I? Dave Morris, did I get you? I'm confused. Chris Howard then.
Yes.
Cameron Austin. BJ Cox. Shaylee Zinsmaster.
Yes.
Susie Woolsey.
Yes.
Ordinance 2025-13 passes on its second reading. Ordinance 2025-16, Councilwoman Wamsley.
Ordinance 2025-16, an ordinance approving payments in lieu of tax for Storyville Apartments, an affordable housing project, and approving and authorizing other actions in connection therewith. This is the first reading. I move for a vote on ordinance 2025-16.
Second.
Any further discussion?
I was hoping we could get the people from Boundary to come up for a few questions on this ordinance. Okay, first of all, thank you for sending the information out. All the council received it. And I think you know, at least for myself, I won't speak for the others, there was a concern about the amount of the pilot you were proposing. And I guess my first question would be, I mean, you said something about it, basically $100 a unit.
Correct.
And I guess the problem I have with that is, I mean, we're looking at a $17 million project. Now, I realize that won't be the assessed value of the project when it's completed because of all the other costs involved, but it just looks to me like there ought to be a better middle of the road here, that we should be able to get a little bit more out of this. I looked at your sheet, and if you go to one page, I couldn't read, it came in way too small, but the third sheet, the net operating income, it looks to me like the operating income is substantial each year.
You have to keep it going down because there still has to be debt payments on that. So when you look at it, there's barely any to make debt service. What I would say to you, Councilman Morris, I understand your concern about wanting us to pay more, and I would be happy to pay more if I could charge residents more, but our rents are regulated, and they're very low. If I was bringing you a market rate apartment, which there are none coming to Logansport right now, but if there was one, let's say I was bringing you a market rate apartment, I would be more than happy to negotiate taxes. The federal government's putting in a significant amount of money towards this project as well as the state, and all we're asking is for the city to provide a contribution as well to make the numbers work. While you may be looking at the operating income, you also have to look at the bottom line, which is we still have to pay for the debt service of that, and we still have to pay the deferred payments on that. So when you look at that, there's barely a 1.12 coverage on it. So it's a very tight deal. And on top of that, we're still having a hard time finding investors to buy the tax credits. The uncertainty around those tax credits are primarily because they're investors. When we first did this deal, we thought we were going to be able to sell them at 85 cents on the dollar. Right now, we can't get better than 80 cents. So we're losing money from investors. And they're also hesitant to invest in markets like Logansport. They'd rather be somewhere known like Indianapolis. The main reason for that is because these are tax credits. If they're going to be getting a tax break from the administration, these don't look as appealing. So we're competing against other markets, and this deal's already very tight. If we make it any tighter, I mean, we are, I mean, I'm sitting here telling you, Counselor, like, if you want to increase it, we'll take it, but we're already having a hard time finding any investors that are even interested in Logansport right now.
So let me ask you this, you've got these credits, what if you don't get the investors?
There's no project.
So you mean, I guess I'm confused, you didn't have the investors lined up before you got the credits?
They don't exist yet. So the credits are not real until the project's being built. So they become our partners once all the boxes have been checked. This is technically our last box before we can go to financing. We have talked to multiple national investment firms, so some of them are local to Indiana, like Merchants Bank and Korea and others. But no, nobody just says, here's a bunch of money, hope.
Well, I get that.
Well,
I'm not that naive, but
Right.
at the same time, it just seems like you would have had investors in mind when you went after.
No, we do,
those credits.
and we have LOIs from all of them. But again, these are not individuals investing, these are investment firms who have clients. Those clients are hesitant to invest in local and low-income housing tax credits because the reason they buy that is because a credit is a dollar for dollar, right? So if I owe the IRS X amount of money and I buy these tax credits, which are distributed over the next 10 years, I'm potentially saving money on the taxes I pay. However, if there's going to be a tax break for me in the tax code, I may no longer need to have these tax credits, so why would I invest in those? So it is not an us situation of Bondry or Logansport, it is a national issue right now that there's just not that much interest in tax credits because of the uncertainty of the tax code happening today, where there still are buyers, but it's very competitive, and we're competing against larger
Now,
markets.
but that's a different tax than the property taxes that I'm
Right.
talking about.
Yeah, exactly. But the investors are buying this tax credit. I have no use for a tax credit, so I have to sell it to an investor. When they have to pay their taxes, they'll use that tax credit. Let's say it's $100. I'll sell them $100 of that tax credit at 85 cents, which is what we had. That was the market when we went to application. Right now, we're struggling to get up to 80 from investors, and we're competing against other markets. And when they look at markets, they look at the overall, environment. So yes, there hasn't been a lot of activity in Logansport. So right now, we are fighting against other communities to make our project attractive, to be competitive. So again, I'm not saying that it would kill the project. I'm not saying it would do anything to the project. I'm saying is we're having a difficult time sourcing.
It would be a change that requires an explanation. So I think to your continued point at last month too, was like, we baked this into the formula. This contribution from the city was in the pro forma, in the application to the state, and then it gets sent to these potential investors. So if we deviate, we then have to say, oh, does the city not support it as much, or did something change? So,
Well,
I understand your,
The city, I mean, as far as the council goes, we were never asked how much support we would give to you. I mean, and don't take that the wrong way, I'm just saying that was never a discussion that we had in the past. And I want this project as much as you guys want it, but I just feel like, there has to be a little give in this for the city of Logansport as well as the development. I mean,
Council, you're getting 74 units, and your residents are going to pay very little to live in them. There's a need for rooftops. I think that's what the city's getting. I mean, you have a need, we're trying to provide it.
And
we're arguing over like $7,000, and to me,
Exactly, my point.
That seems sound silly, and my argument to you is, in deviating from that.
risk the whole thing.
Correct. And so it almost sounds silly to make that argument when it's going to bring some greater good to the community.
Well, and I can look at it from honestly, from the same perspective on the other side of the table. My personal, I look at this and then in year 16, I look at what the projected taxes are, $150,000. And so when I go back and I look at 7,200, not only are we getting 74 apartments, but we're basically putting money into the project, but by not charging you the taxes, correct?
Yep.
So let's say the taxes are $100,000 right now. We're starting out giving you $93,000, even if it stayed the same for the next 15 years.
And to be clear, the reason why the state provided their support is because they considered the pilot to match to their funding. So the state's putting in a substantial amount of money. They're matching the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
And you're right, this is a critical contribution to the project,
So-
making it happen.
And that was part of the state's, they looked at, is the local community putting in their part? And when we had, and again, and I apologize that it wasn't brought to council, it usually is negotiated with the administration and economic development, and a pilot is what every light tech developer brings to their applications, and they count that as the contribution. I'm not, if I was bringing you a market rate development, I would probably be asking you for TIF, additional cash, and infrastructure in a significant amount of dollars. We're simply asking to reduce our taxes, and we're also providing rooftops. And
I'm not opposed to
I'm just
giving
saying
you a
that-
tax break either. I mean, that's not what I'm saying at all.
that's what this is ultimately. I mean, it's a reduction, no matter how you paint it. I mean, you can,
Well,
Excuse me, who in the city of Logansport agreed for you to pay us $7,400 a year for 74 units?
we had a.
Who did you submit that to and they said yes to?
So we have basically an MOU with them that got them through the application process that said specifically we would come and do this when it came down to it. And, I mean, ultimately, we are on the 5-yard line of this thing, trying to, once again, this isn't a project where there's something on it that's paying taxes right now, where we're going to eliminate revenue that we're getting in. Right now, this is an environmental liability that the project is part of the remediation of the property. Without the project, the property stays unremediated, and then we have to go find a way to do that ourselves and hope that in future years, if this project goes away, that through this competitive low-income housing tax credit process, which we only got one of the 2 that we applied for this year, and I know in years past, there have been attempts that haven't been successful. And so the longer that we wait, in my opinion, we need to be selling this. And this is part of us selling this project to not just them, not just the state and federal governments on the tax credit side, but selling it to investors who have to be the ones that come in, buy the tax credits, put this project into actual use. And then at the end, there are significant tax savings over the life of the project. There's no doubt about that. I think that's the case with just about all of these projects around the state. We sat in the same meeting about a market rate project, and I mean, what he said is exactly right on, we have to contribute things. Now it's just saying, hey, we own this property, we're not getting anything off of it right now. We could be getting $7,400 plus a bunch of people living there, plus additional park space and the liabilities off of our hands. I just want to sell it on that point.
You have been selling it on that point, and I don't disagree, but 15 years is a long damn time to say that we're going to take $7,400 a year. That's the problem I have with it. I don't disagree with, let's get the project off the ground, let's get 74 new units, let's get people living there. But you guys, 15 years is a long time to say.
It's up to the tax credits. I think that's typically why it's done that way, is the tax credits are for 15 years.
That's how the program works, Counselor. Again, I would be happy to pay you taxes if I can raise the rents. After 15 years, I no longer have to comply by that. So
But you have to comply.
I'll triple the rents when 15 years comes, and then I'll use that money to pay the taxes. I mean, that's how it works. I mean, if I have to charge $600 for rent for a brand-new studio or one bedroom, how can I operate it and then pay taxes?
Yeah.
So what I'm saying is like that, when my compliance period ends at 15 years.
Okay, that's my question.
And then I'll raise rent.
So your compliance is for 15 years?
That's where that number comes from.
Okay, well, that's just a long damn time, so there you go.
Yeah, but the rents will be regulated for 15 years, so you'll have 74 units, residents, when you're.
So if I rent a place for $600, I get $600 for 15 years? Is that what you're telling me?
The federal government sets the rates every year, so I can't tell you what the federal government's gonna
They
say.
go up with inflation, basically.
But they don't go up much.
But
I mean, but the feds regulate the rates. We don't set them.
Okay.
They'll be set for 15 years. So your restaurant workers, your low-income workers have a place to live and work. In 15 years, once that period is over, I can either go and apply for new tax credits and come back and say, hey, we need to make the same deal. Or I just turn them into market rate and I'll triple the rents for people and then have people come and pay full rent, and I'm happy to pay full taxes.
Okay, thank you.
But at that point, that's kind of where we are now, is none of that matters. After 15 years, doesn't matter if we don't go and get this done now, because if we decide to play with the formula or whatever, there's a chance that it goes away. I don't want to see that. I think this is a really, really great deal for us, and I just want to.
No one's disagreeing with that, Jay. Everybody wants this project to happen. We're not going to throw this project out the window for over property taxes. We just simply had questions about it, and you guys are answering them. Thank you.
By him popping up, you got the initial answer to your question, right?
Well,
Sitting with the administration.
Okay.
And during
Long answer.
during finance.
The administration did.
Yeah.
And then moving
Yeah,
forward, you
I
could
got
say, so typically we wouldn't come after a pilot if we weren't awarded the project. So maybe, in a future application, we cover this before, but if you're not awarded, wouldn't you come after a pilot?
And that's what we're talking about too,
That's
is
time delay on the
future projects.
project, and then you can ask.
Yeah, for the phase 2, I believe, Counselor, you asked when I would be doing this.
Well, it does make sense, but I mean, but you're saying ask after you get the money, but now you're telling me after you get the money, the formula's already set, so I don't understand when we're supposed to.
And Counselor, to the Counselor's point is, when are you putting in for phase 2? If we are able to, so we scored it, we will try to work with the Housing Authority, and if we can tie in project-based vouchers, we feel pretty confident that we can get the second phase this round. This round will be due on end of July, so we can begin the application. And if you would like to set up some sort of committee where you guys are involved in the application process and want to help us put it together and have input in how we.
Well, I would just say this, when we did the Revere homes, the council was involved, so the council knew what was going on. And, when we met, and I don't mean to repeat myself, but when we met last fall and you applied, you said, well, when we get ready to lay it out and all this, we were going to have council involvement, we were going to have community involvement, and everything's laid out. It's all done. and, I would like for you to stick to what you tell us. And you act like we're not helping you out. We had discussions where you guys were going to come in and finish the remediation, but yet we allocated funds to Jacob so that we could get that remediation done before you started.
That was never part of the discussion. I'm gonna,
No, that was part of the discussion, Jacob. We had a lengthy discussion.
we talked about that possibility, but that was never a guarantee. We were just finding ways to get the deal done and get the remediation done, no doubt about it, but that was never.
But we did allocate money. Based on money that we had left over in a fund. We allocated that money for this remediation, and I think that's what you're referring to, isn't it?
Well, and that, we did that, and if you remember, I think you were even the one that questioned me at the time, because you said, well, I thought the developer was going to do that.
Right.
And
that's what they're doing. They're doing the remediation. We're doing the remaining studies that need to, in the remediation work plan for what needs to be done there. It's going to be all done through the development. If there's no development, then we're...
So we were hauling away
What you guys
all the
showed us is where.
pile of cement. That's what you said we were doing with that money.
That's what we did with the grant.
With the leftover?
Not the leftover money. Well, some of that went to it, but there was some that was allocated for the remaining, like, remediation work plan that needed to be done. So there was maybe 20 grand that had to go towards the actual concrete, but there's still some remaining things that need to be done on the site, and we knew that going into it.
Okay. Well, look, nobody's arguing about your project, and nobody's saying that we don't want, we're thrilled to have this done. This has been an eyesore for years, and I don't live in that neighborhood, so, I think this is something we need to do so that we can make things better, and no one's arguing about that. We're just asking about, 15, like I said, 15 years is just a long time, so there you go.
I agree. Before any
Yeah.
applications, you should vote on it, approve it, be there and support it.
I agree. Okay, thank you.
One last question. So you're the developers, correct? So if I read this right, you're going to get $2,200,000 in the end.
With our partners in 15 years.
You're getting, $1.2 million is deferred, and the rest you're going to get basically when the project is complete?
After we pay our attorneys, our partners, staff, it's not, keep in mind, we have an entire staff that we have to pay. We have to pay a whole lot of attorneys and other fees, so I would like to think that that's what I walked away with. It sounds like a big number.
Well, I'm sure it's not, I'm sure it's divvied up. I'm aware of that.
I mean, I would love to say I'll be there after this, but unfortunately I won't.
And I want people that come and invest in Logansport to do well and know that they can do well by investing here, and, I don't know where...
We do too, Jacob. We do too.
We do too, Jay.
I feel the need to come forward and say it, because I think sometimes when you guys are doing your job, it, can come off as not that, and so I just want to, say...
Made that clear at the last meeting. I just said we want what's fair for both parties
I
here.
understand that.
So,
It's a council meeting. I'm
Yep.
doing it.
I just want to check and make sure we got the name change going on. Folks, is that
We
happening?
could go to Storyville Flats. We have to go back to the state, and again, we're trying to avoid additional costs. We'd have to go and amend the application, so we suggested doing, instead of apartments, changing it to flats. I think the connotation of apartments is what bothered you last time, so we...
Are you all right with that, Haley? This was all you, Haley. That was all you.
We're trying to avoid additional legal...
Right, if it's extra, if it's,
If they want to spend $20 million, they can call it flats, apartments.
right, if it's a whole extra, I mean, if it was an easy, just change it, then change it, but if it's a whole process, then no, we'll be fine.
But we still, that sounds better than
Yeah,
apartments.
we
That just-
talked to the legal, to our attorneys, and they said they could make that change, because it's generally Storyville LLP, so we could technically call it flats.
Okay.
We just have to go back to the state and amend the application, and that, we just don't want to open up that can.
Well, you have to agree that just sounds a little better, correct?
Yeah, and we agree.
Okay, all right.
We're happy to make that change. We're just trying to avoid going back and saying. we
Dead
have to
horse.
Change the application.
Sorry, guys.
Just, the state's also under new management.
Yeah.
We don't know what it's-
No, it's all good.
Okay.
Well, I'll tell you what, I appreciate everything you've said and all that, but I'll make an amendment, and if you guys want to vote it down, you can, but I still think 74,000, or 7,400 is an awfully low amount.
Dave, I agree with you there.
I'm going to say, without doing any, if the first year's taxes were 100,000, I would say 20,000 is a fair for the next 15 years. That's not much money for us,
Again,
but,
I do want to make it clear that investors will want to know by that change, and we'll just have to say that, it does, it is not about the money, it's about the perception, but.
how can, did you run the numbers to figure out what the taxes would be?
No, we would have to.
I haven't had time, but I was going to take them to our assessor to see what that, it would be nice to know.
Again, Counselor, we sold it to the state as this is your contribution, and that was on the MOU, and I apologize that you guys were not involved at the beginning, and we heard you loud and clear for future applications. Again, it is less to do with the money. $20,000 is more than one unit's annual revenue. Keep in mind, these are very low rents. So.
But let me ask you this. I read in the pilot program, 15 of the units are going to be at 30%, is what I read, but it doesn't say the 60 and 80%. How many you're going to? Well, when I read through your pilot agreement, somewhere in there it states that 15 of the 74 units were going to be at 30%, and the rest of them would be at 60 or 80, but I don't believe it had the number that those would be.
It has to average out to, I believe, 55% across the board, so I could go and look. I don't have the information with me, but I can tell you that.
You mean when you average the 30, 60, and 80, it's got to come out to 55%?
For every unit? Like no one can pay,
Across the board.
yeah, no one pays more than 55%.
As a project as a whole, so we can have some be a little bit higher, some a little bit lower, but 80% AMI in Logansport is still very low. I mean, it doesn't support construction. There's a reason why you don't have a lot of development happening, is because it costs more money to build, and there's just not the market for what you got to charge to pay for the construction of the, so yes, there will be some 80% AMI, but the average median income of Logansport is very low nationally. So if you take the average median income, and the highest percent will be 80, but we have some at 30%. So
right.
It's going to be very low, and those will be probably, and I can get you the exact breakdown. It should have been in that packet, but if it's not, I'll get it for you.
Didn't miss it either.
Yeah, it should have been on the unit counts and the percentages, but if it's not on there, I'll get you that page.
Well, I just want to say my piece strongly urge that we keep the agreement as is. We have a GO project. We have, nearly $20 million of investment going over there, maybe the most significant project on that side of town in a while, and also takes a problem off of our hands that if we don't do this, we got to figure it out. I can't say for sure whether what they're saying is true or not. I just know that we have a GO project, and I'd hate to see that go because we're trying to squeeze a little bit more out of it. In the end, I think that the number of people living there would be significant, not just for us, but for local businesses, the school corporation, others, and the park and amenity space is a significant contribution to the neighborhood. And so that, I just want to say my piece on it and let you guys do your thing, but thank you. Keep working forward no matter what.
I think there's always new construction going on in the east end. The only construction right now going on the west side is the gas station. General Tire's been gone for a long time. Trailport has been gone for a long time. It's sitting flat. They've had fires over there with railroad cars. I know, Dave, we all want more money for our stuff, but I say we build them and get them going, and it's 74 places for people to live. There's no other places in town to go.
I agree. I want to see something on the west side. I mean, I'd like to see that number higher, but I also understand the financials, so.
And I think we just got to I just think we're just too slow to get there, and it's not our fault because we weren't presented with this earlier, but I just think it's not a good time now. Like, we're just too slow to the gate.
I respect that. I mean, I'll go with what the majority wants to do, but I'm just saying,
I don't disagree with you, Dave, but I just think that we're just too slow.
I'd like to see some input on the second phase.
Yeah, so we're just,
We're gonna get started on that.
bottom line is, when it comes to financial matters, the council's supposed to determine those numbers and not have them brought to us and then have you say, well, we can't do anything about it, it's too late, or it blows the project up. That's not the way things are supposed to be done. And I'm just, I made a motion to amend. If it's voted down, I respect that, that's okay. So, did you second it, Cam, or was it seconded?
I think it's a little low. I'd like to see it brought up a little bit, especially like you said, for 15 years at that rate.
but
I agree that it's low. I agree that we were told that we would be involved and we haven't been involved. However, if what you're saying is true and the project could possibly be a no if we go through this, then I'm not willing to risk that, I guess.
yeah, I feel the same way. I'm not willing to risk this not happening based on getting,
Let's just take the vote, we'll vote that down, and then we'll vote on the original ordinance. I mean,
Okay.
I'm okay with that, I'm fine with it.
Can I also say something? So if I got this correct, Oscar, it's looking at 102,400 total over 15 years? Because, yeah, okay, so it's the 7,400 over 15 years, plus the 5,000 for 26 that you put in here. So it's 102,400 total over 15 years, and this is only the first reading. So unless you're gonna suspend the rules and go with the second reading, I would ask them what you want before the second reading. You know what I mean?
I think they've already made it clear that they've made it real clear where they're coming in with $7,400 and that they don't feel like they have any wiggle room. It's just, I get where everybody's coming from, but I just don't think that there's no need to delay it they can come back, but I don't think they're gonna come back with anything. I can tell by the way they feel like they're at
They knew when they came back today, I was gonna ask them for more, and they didn't come prepared to make any kind of an offer, so,
It just puts us in that situation, Counselor. So we're here to ask, please leave it as is so that we can get through it, and we'll work with you on the next one.
well, you could give us 13 grand out of your developer's costs every year.
It would-
I'm just teasing. Don't even, you don't have to.
Right.
So,
So I have a motion and a second for an amendment, and we'll vote on that. Call for question, sorry.
Okay. Susie Walmsley,
No.
Dave Morris. Scott Peedy,
no.
BJ Cox,
No.
Haley Sinsmaster,
No.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
Chris Howard.
No.
The amendment for ordinance 2025-16 fails. Do I have a motion to vote on ordinance 2025-16 as written?
So moved.
Second.
Call for question.
BJ Cox,
Yes.
Scott Peedy,
Yes.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
Susie Walmsley,
Yes.
Chris Howard,
Yes.
Haley Sinsmaster,
Yes.
Dave Morris.
Yes.
Ordinance 2025-16 passes on its first reading. Next. Thank you.
Second reading on that will be June 23rd.
Would you like us back here?
No. Have enough discussion.
When you're ready to talk about the next one.
Okay.
These two can be container homes.
Next is resolution 2025-131. Councilman Howard.
Resolution 2025-131, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, authorizing the local match commitment for a public facilities program, PFP grant. Mr. Mayor, I ask for a vote on Resolution 2025-131.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for question.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
Haley Zinsmaster,
Yes.
BJ Cox,
Yes.
Scott Peedy,
Yes.
Susie Walmsley,
Yes.
Chris Howard,
Yes.
Dave Moss.
Yes. Resolution 2025-131 passes. Resolution 2025-132, Councilwoman Zinsmaster.
Resolution 2025-132, a resolution of the Common Council of the City of Logansport, Indiana, authorizing the submittal of the public facilities application to the Indiana Office of Community and Rural Affairs and addressing related matters, and I ask for a vote on Resolution 2025-132.
Second.
Any further discussion? Call for question.
Susie Walmsley,
Yes.
Dave Morris,
Yes.
Chris Howard,
Yes.
Cameron Austin,
Yes.
BJ Cox,
Yes.
Haley Zinsmaster,
Yes.
Scott Peedy.
Yes. Resolution 2025-132 passes. Any public comments? Anyone in the audience who would like to make a comment, please come to the microphone. State your name and address for us, please. Okay. Seeing none, any council member comments?
I've got a couple. We've got a special council meeting scheduled for June the 23rd. We'll have the annual, before that, we'll have several committee meetings, but the Finance Committee meeting will be meeting primarily to discuss the annual abatement reviews that have to be passed in the month of June. So consequently, that's why we'll have a special council meeting at the end of the committee meetings on June the 23rd. And a couple other things, just points of interest. We submitted an application for a T-Mobile grant and a Subaru grant, both for the memorial home, and unfortunately, both of those weren't successful. But we've gotten some feedback from them, and so we know what the issues were on that. And we did get the status of the memorial home upgraded from a local National Historic Site to a state historic site, which will open up some other avenues of revenue possibly.
I mean, you can resubmit to the places that told you what the problems were, or those grants are dead and we just have to move forward to new ones?
I think there's the possibility, but we have to review whether we want to go attempt to do that or not.
Any other council member?
Yeah, I got a couple of things here. I've had a couple of people stop by my house and talk about they're putting in a new fence in their yard, and they had the old fence tore down and they put a new fence up, and here comes Aaron. And I don't understand why if they put a new fence in the same place, what's the big deal? And they say it's a front yard and it's a side yard, and the only thing they're doing is adding 2 foot in privacy.
So the zoning ordinance states that anything that faces a street is considered a front yard due to visual coming into intersections and those type of things. So anything that would be a corner lot has to meet that. So anything that's in the front yard has to be 4 foot. Just so that you don't block their whole house up, and visually and aesthetically that gives you a different feel for the area and those type of things. Once you take something down, it's like it's never there based off the zoning ordinance. It's your opportunity to make people meet these standards that are in place. So once it's removed, it's like it was never there, and thus they would have to meet the new standards. Now, with that said, we do have a lot of properties that are corner lots that may have an accessory structure historically that goes to the sidewalk, and then the house sets back a little bit. And so you'll see some of those where they have some privacy fences because of that garage that sits closer to the sidewalk. In some areas, I guess the problem is very general standard. So in some areas of the town, we do not have the sidewalk. They own to the edge of the pavement. So if we would allow that 6 foot privacy fence in the front yard on a corner lot that's to the side of the house, really, then you're visually obstructing. In some areas, they have a setback because they have a tree lawn and a sidewalk, and then they own the property. But in planning and zoning, it's generalized, so we can't specify on each individual lot. If that's something that the council wants us to review, obviously, we would have to go through that process and bring it to the planning commission for a hearing and then on to council. What we have done in the past is just taken people through the BZA approval process. What that does is that they get approved for that property and it stays with the property. So once they're approved for it, they can always put that fence back up. So if they're taking it down in 10 years and putting it back up in that location at 6 foot, they would continue to be able to do that. So that's why we normally take them through the BZA process.
So the people who took the fence down and put the fence up,
Had not gone through the.
they had not gone through the proper procedures to get
Previous.
approval of their fence, and that's what
I think the chain link fence has been there for years.
Grandfathered in, I'm assuming, or someone did it without a permit. I don't know the specific property exactly, but once they take it down, it's like it was never there. And the whole purpose is so that we can't retroact planning, but we can move forward when something's removed to meet our standards. So that's our only time to really make things happen. And so that's why when anything's removed, it's like it was never there. So if they would go through the BZA approval right now and get that approved, when they sell the house, in 100 years, they would be allowed to continue to put that fence up because they've gotten that approval for that specific lot.
Yeah, but they're just asking for the privacy, and they've put a whole new fence around the complete 2 whole yards, and to go on the side yard and say, well, you can't do that, and you're gonna pay a fee. I think it's just stealing money from the family, and they're spending so much money here already.
I mean, it can be something, if the council wants to waive the fee for them to go through the process, that's fine, we can talk about that.
But then there was another,
It's just, we can only read the ordinance and what the ordinance states.
there was another gentleman that had his fence for years, and it was falling down, and so he decided to put a new one up, and he had to go through the process, in which the fence has been there for years, and he just wanted to repair it and build a new one.
Yeah, the problem is a lot of them are grandfathered in, and now they're at the point of needing repair, so we're able to actually take them through the process and say, this is an opportunity in these scenarios, we've never had a problem, so it's the opportunity to take them through the BZA and allow them to do it, but we don't know that every house that doesn't currently have it, allowing that to happen now, that it wouldn't cause a problem. So that's, again, zoning is very generalized.
These are both corner lots, and they get the front yard.
Would it be BZA approval if they just added to the existing fence and went up 2 feet?
So I don't know the specific property. I talked to Jamie and she said, BJ's gonna bring this up. And I said, all right, I'm ready for him. Anyway, so I don't know the specific lot. There are, in some instances, they can if there's a maintenance, and so they're repairing a section of the fence, they can repair a section of the fence. But if they're taking that whole section down and replacing that whole section, then that's when
That was on the west side of town. Yeah, but the people who are it's on the corner of Main and Tangy, there is no obstruction of view whatsoever from the sidewalk, and that would be the only way if you would be obstructed if you were driving on the sidewalk, so.
they can go present that to the BZA. I mean, that's what the rule is, BJ, so they have to go through the same steps as everyone else.
They got the whole yard done, and they gotta wait 3 weeks to go in front of the board and
Did they
finish their
submit a
project.
permit before starting their fence?
I don't know, they just replaced the old one.
Because what we
They
have
bought 2
a lot,
houses.
what we have a lot is people replace their stuff and don't get a permit because they feel like there's not a permit needed. And so that we don't see until after they've done a lot of the project that they're doing it. And that's when we stop them. And that's unfortunate. We would rather talk to them before they start a project. So in those instances, yeah, I have the material, I've been working on it, I'm almost finished, but we finally caught, because the rest of them probably met the standard and we didn't see it because it wasn't on the corner yet that they were replacing. I don't know the ins and outs of it. But that's when we catch them and that's when we stop them a lot of the time. And it is frustrating because they're like, I bought the material, I've already done this, but they never submitted a permit to know that it was going to be an issue.
Answer my question on that. If you have the existing fence and you add 2 feet on it, does it require BZA?
No. All you can do is maintain the fence. So let's say a certain section is rotted away, they could replace that certain couple of fence posts or whatever, but they couldn't replace all of it, and they can't go above 4 feet.
Okay.
In the front yard, that is, for those corner lots.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Once again, it's the side yard, but the front yard is on the street.
Yeah, the ordinance says anything that's along the street is considered a front yard for our setback purposes and height.
Yep, so does BJ need to tell those people that they need to come?
Well, they have an appointment and everything, but,
Okay.
yeah.
And I don't know the situation, but just hearing it, it seems like one of those situations where a permit wasn't pulled, so they didn't know ahead of time that it was gonna be an issue, because a lot of the times, if we catch it ahead of time, they can work on the project and we get it before they get to that section. So, anyway. Any other questions? You got another one popping up?
And not with you.
Okay, good.
We're putting all the money in the boulevard and people are still parking in it. I think we need to have a meeting to say, you know, we're putting grassing in it, we're putting trees in it. Either we do something with the boulevard to make it, put parking on the side, alternate it, or just put a sign up, no parking, period. What?
Dave covered this at the last meeting, right? Where you said, didn't you talk to Travis and he said that we're gonna have new signs, right?
We have to do a meeting on that because the sign says 7 to 4, no parking. And then after that, there's 18 to 20 cars in the new grass and everywhere.
So you're asking to have a public
Yes.
works meeting? Is what you're asking?
That's number 2.
Any other council?
Oh, he's got a list.
He's not.
He's got a list.
10 o'clock? Do they work?
Oh, are they up? No, not up yet.
That's a question for Tyler Pearson or Lauren.
They just
McCoy.
they just hired the new person. My understanding was they were going to give them a week to settle in before they told them to get on it.
I thought the new person was coming months ago.
That was like the temporary person, but now they actually hired a full-time person.
He's been here a week.
Yeah, so he's been here a week. I think they were going to let him settle in.
Been working on it. I know he's been working on it.
Okay.
Okay.
We talked to, the lady back there advised one time that we used to have memorial trees. We talked to a few people on the
Susan
boulevard that would
Gerald.
love that. They would love to pay for memorial trees, so Jan, do you have like a template where we can, you know?
We're gonna talk to
Yeah.
We're working on it.
Yeah, so, we can pay for the trees next time, but people buy their own trees and.
Any other council member comments?
I just like to comment, thanks for being done, BJ.
All right, miscellaneous business and any matters not already considered, including ADA Section 504 compliance or concerns. All right, seeing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Kitchell?
BJ Hess.
Yeah.
Debbie Zinsmeister.
Yes.
Chris Howard.
Yes.
Cameron Wilson.
Yes.
Susan Wamsley.
Yes.
Scott Peet.
Yes.
Dave Morris.